talking Memphis wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.
Hello, everybody. This is Randy Hales on Tuesday, March the 28th. I think everybody knows the great family, the great group of people like Jeff Frog Wheeler that watched this program knows the initial setup of this program. We started as a Facebook show, then a Twitter show. Brooks Tullis has joined us down the line and a part of our family. So many people. We started strictly as a Memphis wrestling talk show. Then we ended up doing video as well. We added a producer and Adam Dunn, my good buddy who co-hosts the Monday show. We added panel members and co-hosts for the Tuesday show, Pat Trammell, Michael St. John, Chris Ellis. We even added a new show that I do on special occasions, the Randy Hales Show. I think everybody knows that even though my bread and butter is professional wrestling, my love is professional wrestling, what I'm best at, but I like the challenge of new stuff. I like the challenge of talking news. I like the challenge of talking at times disastrous. I like the challenge of talking sports. As today, we'll talk about a new Arkansas State University basketball coach. He came from Alabama. Pat has more on that story later. We'll talk about the Final Four, our predictions for that. We have a lot going on. We'll talk wrestling. One of the most craziest stories ever, the end of the USWA, the arrival of Larry Burton, the arrival of Mark Selker, Jerry Jarrett selling out. It was absolutely crazy. It was nuts. And we'll have that story. But again, I like talking different items, and we will. We will review last Wednesday's Dynamite main event that Dave Meltzer said was 5-star. Bull, you know what? Bull, you know what? We will preview WrestleMania. I mean, this deadgum sucker is loaded. Let me look here. Alexander says, Randy, how the USWA slowly lost their anchor cities. Hey, Al. What is going on, my buddy from Georgia? Al Brooks says, I think the show has come along nicely, especially here lately. You expressed a variety of your opinions, which I'm just excited to hear than wrestling news, and I appreciate that very good. We'll keep it going. My buddy in Australia shared the show today on my Facebook with all my group and other members. Who else? Adam is talking to us today on Talking Memphis Wrestling, as we will see right now. I guess there's nobody new, and I will explain why Michael St. John is not here yet. Don't know for sure if he will be on at all today. Again, Pat and I'll talk about that situation right now. Lots happening in Alabama right now. I want to bring in my good friend, my close friend, the husband of Suzanne, the daddy of Wyatt and Meg, Michael, Randy, and Adam and Chris Ellis, and you people, the family, our friends here, your good friend, the great Pat Trammell.
Well, thank you, Randy. I've never been called that before, but I'll take it.
It's all true.
I'll take it.
You are Suzanne's husband. You are Meg.
Yeah,
And you are
nobody's ever
great.
called me the great anything, though.
And you are great, no doubt about it. I was saying hello. Now, I have some questions for you here, and have your phone up. Michael is in Arab, Alabama. His radio station, and we'll put that graphic up if people want to stream Michael's radio station. The Fun Radio Group is Michael's station is also simulcasting on local TV. And Adam, when I call for it, are we able to go to the audio right now? If you would let me know that. And Pat, in the meantime, real quick, talk real quick because we want to go to audio. They have a breaking news situation in Huntsville, Alabama. Set that up in 30 seconds.
Well, apparently there's been a standoff with someone with a gun at an apartment complex on Governor's Drive in Huntsville, Alabama. Governor's Drive is one of the main thoroughfares in a very nice area, and apparently this afternoon, law enforcement was called to the scene. Two of the officers have been shot and are at the hospital. We don't know anything about their condition, although we're going to keep them certainly in our prayers. And it appears to me that the gunman is barricaded himself in an apartment. Now I do understand that a third person also has been wounded, but I don't know if it's the quote perpetrator or not. So we just got a hold of this in the last 5 minutes before the show started. So I know Michael was going to be with us, but he's covering the breaking news for his radio station, which covers Huntsville, and I think maybe we have some of that feed here now.
Michael called me right before we went off the air and smartened me up. He said he's going to do his best to come on. His son-in-law is a Huntsville police officer, and he's been called to the scene. So pray, people, pray for all the police officers in Huntsville. Let's join Fun Radio in Alabama right now, listening to Michael St. John on the coverage.
We don't know who that person is right there, but it looks like they were brought there by a police escort from another jurisdiction. So we'll see what that is about. That's again a live picture from Huntsville Hospital. We have multiple reporters covering this breaking news for you. We'll check in with them here in just a moment. This is a statement from Congressman Dale Strong, 5th District here, which includes, obviously, Huntsville and Madison County. 2 Huntsville police officers were shot in the line of duty tonight, an absolute tragedy. Details are limited at this time as the standoff is ongoing. That standoff, we believe, it has now been resolved. But the statement continues. I am following the situation closely. My prayers are with the officers and their families. That statement from Congressman Dale Strong here, 5th District of Alabama. There's a live picture now again of Huntsville Hospital.
Michael St. John broadcasting live, his radio, Fun Radio. If you can get that graphic up right now, if we can, Adam, that caption. Michael St. John discussing a breaking news event, a shooting of police officers in Huntsville, Alabama.
Officers rushed here to Huntsville Hospital. We are waiting on an update on their conditions, praying for the best outcome. Police were in a standoff for well over an hour with a suspect inside an apartment.
There's a TV personality talking. That voice is not Michael St. John.
On Governor's House Drive, near Jordan Lane, where it intersects with 565. Police seem to have resolved that situation a little while ago. We saw dozens of units leaving that area and lights and sirens off. So we believe that situation with that suspect has been resolved. We don't know how. And again, these are answers that we hope to get when we hear from Huntsville Police spokesperson Sydney Martin coming up in just a few minutes, we are told.
Let's come back to us as prayers. It sounded, listening to that report, Pat, that the story might be coming to a close. So our prayers here on Talking Memphis Wrestling for all involved, especially the police officers.
You know, it's been a rough couple of days. I think I told you I was in Nashville yesterday, and you know where the shooting happened in that school, and I think you know this. I don't know if our listeners do that, but for a period of time we lived in Nashville, and Wyatt, who's our 21-year-old, was born there, and you know we lived probably a mile and a half from that the church and the school, and actually was looking for daycare for Wyatt when he's little, and I've toured that place. So, it's a just a lot happens in this world now, and prayers for everybody out there. Good. Hey, Ahmad, hope you're well. But hope everything in Huntsville comes to the best conclusion it can.
We're covering a lot here today on Talking Memphis Wrestling. That's a terrible situation. Yesterday, Pat, we started the Power Hour with the Randy Hill Show as we covered the shooting in Nashville yesterday. It was a terrible situation. I love Nashville. I love Music City, USA. We'll show a picture of Nashville right now, and maybe if we have any other pictures involving that story that we can throw up there in the photos, or Adam, if you might have to change brand photos and go to the Power Pro page and get the city of Nashville, a picture of of the church and that sort of thing that we were doing. The terrible shooting in Nashville, the shooting in Huntsville today. There's a lot going on, and there's my town. There's my city. It's great. It's Music City, USA, Nashville, Tennessee. Beautiful, 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 beautiful at all. Michael St. John broadcasting right now, and we will go to the live breaking of audio for Michael St. John and Fun Radio.
Barricaded inside an apartment in Sparkman Apartments, Sparkman House Apartments, just off of I-565. If you are going eastbound on 565 past the Space and Rocket Center and the new hotel that was built where the old fish restaurant was, you see a lot of gray apartments. That's where this occurred this afternoon. We understand it all began around 4:30 this afternoon. Huntsville police responded. 2 Huntsville police officers were shot by the suspect as they arrived. Both were transported to Huntsville Hospital. We have unconfirmed reports. 1 officer has died. A 2nd officer in surgery for his.
Michael told us that earlier. I didn't want to say that. It's still apparently unconfirmed. I hope that's not good information and the officer is alive. Prayers, everybody. We have a late breaking situation. Here's Michael St. John.
Carried via WATCHWe Channel 31, who've done outstanding coverage of this tonight. We are going to rejoin their coverage, but again, this coverage, Fun Radio, getting reports from eyewitnesses, from Fun listeners in the area, and from other news sources.
Hello, Barry Hayes.
That 1 officer has died in this attack in Huntsville. Suspect shot, and it is in Huntsville Hospital right now in ER. The extent of those injuries not known on the suspect. The 2nd police officer that was shot in Huntsville is currently in surgery. We offer all of our prayers and our thoughts going up to him right now. May he be in the hands and the grace of God. Again, the situation unfolding in Huntsville this afternoon. We are going to rejoin WATCHWe, and we will stay with WATCHWe through the police department and Huntsville City's press conference that will start, we understand, within the next 15 minutes, we have been told. So we are awaiting that right now. But again, Channel 31 with continuing coverage. Fun Radio is reporting through eyewitnesses and Fun listeners. And again, this is we are reporting that 1 officer has died in this situation. The 2nd officer is in surgery at Huntsville Hospital. The suspect was shot by officers and is currently in the emergency room at Huntsville Hospital, condition unknown. Let's rejoin WATCHWe. You're listening to Fun Radio. We are WAFN, FM, and HD1, ARAB Huntsville. We are Fun 92.7 FM. The Fun Media News Center now joins WATCHWe Channel 31 for their continuing coverage.
We're back now live in the Talking Memphis Wrestling Studios in my hometown of Jonesboro, Arkansas. Michael St. John live at his radio station in Huntsville, live reporting the sad story in Huntsville. Adam, I want you to continue to monitor that when they have Michael is back on the air, we'll continue to do that. Certainly, Michael's son-in-law is a police officer at the scene. It's a fluid situation, and the world we live is the world we live. So I hope everybody, Barry, thank you for the prayers. Again, I think and I think Pat would agree with me. Certainly, our number one goal normally is to entertain you and educate you about Memphis wrestling. But actually, there's a bigger goal, and that goal is to inform you and to talk about everything, real life stuff, both the good and the bad. I hope everybody's interested in this. Adam, I'll let you judge here. There's a press conference going on now. Breaking news from Fun Radio WRAB covering the situation in Huntsville. So, Adam, if you want to go to the press conference, certainly you can.
We'll take that subject into custody. That subject also was injured and has been transported to the hospital. Right now, the Chief Giles, is at the hospital with the families, updating them on the officer status. At this time, both officers are critical, and from what we understand, the female is also injured and is okay. Behind me, I have Sheriff's PIO, Master County Sheriff PIO, Peterson. I'd like to thank Sheriff Turner for his assistance. When this turned into a barricaded subject, he supplied some resources for us that helped us with that. I also have Captain Jesse Solomon here with us as well. Right now, I'm not going to take any questions. We're going to be en route to the hospital. We thank you for coming out here tonight.
That's a press conference, Huntsville, Alabama, with apparently the chief police in Huntsville, Alabama. Just a fluid situation. And as I was saying before we went to that, and Adam is right on this and will let us know when to go back. Do you agree with me? We need to be entertaining and funny and kind of me and you fight between each other and all that. But when there's real life news, I think all of a sudden we become news reporters, and it's our obligation and responsibility to share with our audience. Do you agree, Pat?
I do agree, and in this particular instance, a member of our Talking Memphis Wrestling family, Michael's involved, and of course we're concerned for his family and his neighbors, and sure, I mean, I think we do have an obligation for that.
Like David Linville says, let's put his comment up there, says, does anyone think this crime, this horrible act of violence, is that of some disturbing mental copycats with serious emotional and mental health problems? Now, David, I don't know if it's copycats. Obviously, they have severe mental problems or they wouldn't be doing it. Real quick, Pat, your response to that.
I agree with David. I mean, I think there's a lot. I'm no psychologist, but there's a lot of people in the world that reach breaking points for whatever reason, and in the first quarter of the 21st century, the way to make the biggest statement is with a gun, unfortunately. And I don't want to get into all that with anybody, but I've got mixed emotions about all the gun things, so I'm not going to address it. But it's people in our era. I think some people just have to be noticed, and I think it's a way to do that is something like what we saw last night. And I don't know the situation tonight, but it happens too much, and I don't know how we fix it.
Let's go back, folks, and we'll get into the body of the show. This overrides that. This is very important, and I'm very interested. My thoughts and prayers. Love me some Michael St. John and his family, and let's go to Michael now.
Several occasions over the past hour,
we are going to stick with the report of what we are being told. But again, the latest report of both officers are critical, but we understand that one officer has died in this situation. So whether or not that's true, we will continue to monitor that situation. We hope and pray it's not, but our sources are telling us that that is the case. Suspect was shot. We understand that police returned fire after he ambushed the officers, and he was put down, but survived. And in this case, was transported later at Huntsville Hospital after the officers were transported to Huntsville Hospital. The original call came in. A woman in the apartment apparently shot. She will be okay, as you heard. Not life-threatening injuries there. One police officer, we understand, is in surgery at this time, and we will continue to update this situation as the evening goes on. But that's what we have, and that is what we have as our latest reports. As the reports come down from Huntsville Hospital and from the Huntsville Police Department, we will break in with any breaking news or additional information as needed during Kevin James's show this evening. We appreciate the fact that you have joined us tonight for this report. When news breaks out, of course, we break in immediately with any and all information that we possibly can regarding this situation. But again, 2 police officers in Huntsville shot, suspect shot, all at Huntsville Hospital. The original call coming up for a shooting at a local apartment complex, the Governor's Place Apartments. Those apartments, of course, were cordoned off until this incident had a resolution. And again, we will report on the condition of the police officers as we get information. We thank you for joining us. You're listening to Fun Radio. We are WAFN FM and HD1 ARAM Huntsville.
It's Talking Memphis Wrestling. I am Randy Hales on the March the 28th edition of Talking Memphis Wrestling, covering my friend Michael St. John, my friend Pat Trammell's home state of Alabama. Michael lives very close to Huntsville. The radio station's broadcast in there. This is a fluid, ongoing, breaking news situation. We'll keep you posted, and Adam's monitoring, and we'll go back with it. We will talk wrestling. We'll get to our main event story in a minute. A lot going on. Again, we will break in at times. Hey, folks, I have a couple of questions. My buddy Willie Schode wanted me to talk about Spaceman Hickey, and we have that picture from started his wrestling career in the 40s. Spaceman Hickey, man, he was a character. So Michael might have more information than me. I'm holding Willie. If you're watching now, I'm holding off to see whether Michael ends up coming on the show, but Frank Spaceman Hickey. And then I want to read you an email, and if I can have any kind of backup graphic so I'm not looking at my phone while we do that, a generic thing right there. I got an email from Lee Modest, and I'll read. It says, "Hello, Mr. Hales, longtime listener of your podcast and watcher of your shows on YouTube and Facebook. I've got a question for you. Perhaps you and others can do a show on that. And that's your top 3 or 5 or 10 favorite matches outside of Memphis from other territories, promotions, and even those in other countries like Mexico and Japan." I'm such a Memphis wrestling guy. I just am, totally. We will talk about your other questions coming up, certainly on another show, probably next Tuesday night. You asking the question about favorite matches that was not Memphis related. Pat's certainly answers will be different than mine. I'd have to say Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Hogan, The Rock, Austin and Bret Hart, the Survivor Series, the Rock and Roll Express against the Midnight Express, Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker. They're just so many. Certainly, my Memphis favorite matches, and I would like right now, as we waiting for more breaking news that we will go live to Michael St. John at Fun Radio Group. Pat, can you answer that question?
For that, I'm thinking about that right now. The Steamboat Flair stuff was really, really good. Now, the truthfully, the best match I've ever seen live was Nick Aldis and Cody Rhodes that Jeff produced at it was Cody's last match before he went to AEW. He dropped the NWA belt to Aldis, and that was a unbelievably good match. It had some of everything. But yeah, I think Steamboat Flair, certainly, Flair and Dusty, were some good things. You know, gosh, I'm just gonna have to think through some of those things. I'm gonna have to put some time into that.
Lee Modest, I appreciate your writing in. We'll get to your other questions as well. We're monitoring the breaking news situation in Huntsville, Alabama. We have on site broadcasting from Arab, Alabama, Michael St. John, the shooting of two police officers. We have that situation, and we're keeping up with the story. My producer, Adam Dunn, is on top of it, folks, on top of it as well. I want to thank everybody for watching and contributing and being with us and being patient with us while we talk about that. Al says, guys, please plays well for Malik Declare. He's an officer from the Jacksonville, Florida, shot in the line of duty Sunday morning. Law enforcement in general, certainly that officer for sure. Obviously, Brooks Tullis in law enforcement and has a comment at the point that I didn't preview hot topic situation, so I don't. We won't go on. I haven't had a chance to read it, so I don't want to go with that because it's just a sensitive situation. All right, this weekend coming up, very important weekend. This weekend is WrestleMania, a Saturday night event, a Sunday night event, the road to WrestleMania, and we'll be previewing that here today on Talking Memphis Wrestling, the road to WrestleMania. Also, Pat, it is March Madness. It is going to be after March ends, but it is still a great time. What I think is the best sports tournament there is. It is the NCAA Big Dance, the final four teams, and we are going to do our picks, and I want my audience along to Pat, and here we go. The University of UConn, who beat Arkansas, who has looked bad, man, as in good. They look tough. I think I may be picking them. However, their first game in the Final Four against, and I kind of have a little cat in the fight on this thing. One of the transfers to Miami this year is Omar, and he did just a fantastic job. He went in the transfer portal, and he is in the Final Four. So congratulations to him. Also, it's been the tournament of the upsets, and certainly we have Florida Atlantic against San Diego State. So the teams are UConn, Miami, Florida Atlantic, and San Diego State. I guess I tip mine off. I want our audience opinion on this. I think UConn, even though my sentimental favorite, Pat, is Miami.
I think I've got to go with UConn as well. Although, Miami's one of those teams that are down but never out. But I think UConn's just got too much talent for them.
Very good. I think it'll be a great tournament. Just your thoughts briefly, about 45 seconds, on how exciting this darn tournament is, Pat.
Well, as you know, I had my heart broken 2 nights ago by a kid named Trammell, incidentally, from San Diego State. But it's been a lot of fun for me because Alabama's been obviously one of the favorites. And but yeah, I don't remember a tournament that had as many exciting last minute finishes. And there's not a 1 seed left, and that's highly unusual. So it just shows you that on any given day anybody can win. And I've got a big sentimental favorite for personal reasons of the Final Four here. So we'll just see where it goes.
Very interesting thing, and real exciting stuff in that tournament. Another big news, as everybody know, I'm a Red Wolf. I graduated here in Jonesboro, Arkansas State University, right here in Jonesboro town. So that means actually I was a Arkansas State University Indian till they said that's not politically correct. We've turned into the Red Wolves. I'm a Red Wolves. And unfortunately, my good friend, Coach Mike Bellato, was let go last week. Very, very sad. Good friend of mine, go missing. But they got to do what they got to do. And they hired a coach, and I'm going to let Pat make that announcement as we show the picture, and let Pat let you know how he knows what the hell I'm talking about.
Well,
This story.
We've got an Alabama guy in Jonesboro, and Jeff Purian, my friend who's ridden his Nick Saban coattails all the way to Jonesboro, stacking the deck with ex-Alabama coaches with Butch and Brian Hodgson. And I've got a friend who is a very, very long time engaged Alabama basketball fan and has had tickets on the floor for 40 years, and so he's got access to the coaches. And Hodgson was the lead recruiter for that team you saw on the floor this year. And I can tell you there's never been that much talent on an Alabama basketball team in history. And he also seems to get the right kids. On the other hand, he also was in charge of defensive game preparation. And that's really what this team has won with this year. They are ferocious on defense. So if you can get a recruiter that knows how to coach defense, you gotta like your options. So I think the the future is bright for the Red Wolves.
Very good. I'm excited for sure. And Adam, if some of the people are giving their input into their guesses, Pat and I was in agreement, and that never happens. Me and Pat on the same page. But if you could put up the comments from our audience and see how many people are picking. Let's see. Frank says UConn versus Miami for the title, and UConn should win. Frank Seaton from Arkansas. Mark Manley says UConn is with the strap down, a little wrestling relation thing. And Ron says, I'm going to say Miami in a big upset. And Norshad Amir is the guy I was looking at, was the Arkansas State University Red Wolf, as if there's any more up there. And I guess Al Tuttle says he's going with UConn. So that is up there too. So very interesting picks as well. As we are talking Memphis wrestling, we're talking real life, we're talking a lot of stuff going on. And Pat, right now I want to preview a little bit Wrestle Mania, and WrestleMania coming this year, and Adam will back me up in graphics, and we'll go over in no particular order the show and one of the matches that I think will probably be one of the main events. And I think I should also say in this situation so far in the WWE 2023 Hall of Fame in the celebrity wing, it's Andy Kaufman, and it has been reported that he will be inducted by Jerry Lawler. I was worried about that because Lawler's health issue about a month and a half ago. Also, Rey Mysterio in the WWE Hall of Fame. Conan will induct him. The Great Muta will be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And I believe it's been reported Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, will be the inductee there. And Stacy Keibler will also be in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. That will probably, I don't even know. I'm not even going to guess. I don't know exactly when that ceremony, maybe somebody can do research and see when that will air. Just a very interesting card of WrestleMania. It's a 2-night event. It's on Peacock Television. This is the go home. So we will go ahead and try to do a motivational little sell. I'll go back to my days of promoting wrestling. I will go back to that days at all. Certainly, I'm nothing better. I can do nothing better than promote wrestling. I'm so excited. The grandest show there is WrestleMania. One of the matches I'm interested in is the father and son match, the battle of the Mysterios, Ray versus Dominic. Very interesting match. A match that I think should main event night one of WrestleMania. The Usos against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. A U.S. title match for the United States Heavyweight Championship. Austin Theory against the returning John Cena. Also, just so many great matches. Charlotte Flair against Rhea Ripley. Bianca Belair against Asuka. You will see Brock Lesnar versus Omos. Becky Lynch teams, listen to this, Pat. Becky Lynch teams with Lita and Trish Stratus versus Bayley, Io, Sky, and Dakota Kai. You will see Seth Rollins against Logan Paul in the main event on night two. What a story. The bloodline. It's been so excited and so enjoyable, and I just loved it. Also, Cody Rhodes bet on himself. He left the WWE and went to the independents, went to ROH, spent a little time in TNA. Then he was a part of the startup of AEW, and then he went back home. He was injured in a absolutely graphic, inspiring performance after, I believe it was after SummerSlam, that he did absolutely fantastic. It's a great story, bloodline, everything about it. I'm excited about this year's WrestleMania. I'll watch on Peacock both nights, Saturday and Sunday. I've done my preview, Pat. I'm blowed up. I'm out of breath. Your thoughts, and you can take me off the screen, Adam, and go full screen with Pat. Your thoughts on WrestleMania.
Well, I mean, I think they've got some intriguing matches. You know, obviously everybody wants to see Roman and Cody, and I'm curious as to how they're gonna, work together and for how long. And Lawrence, I like your kind of thought on who might come in. Um, you know, I I'm also intrigued and really want to see the Seth Rollins and Logan Paul match because I think Logan Paul is a serious guy about this, and I think the two of them can work very, very well together. I'm not really all that excited about John Cena showing back up. I know they do that, and I know they get a big pops out of it. But he's moved on. So anyway, I have absolutely zero with a Z and an E and an R and an O and a 6-man ladies tag match. I think that's just too that's just too much. I mean, I just don't think for whatever reason women's wrestling pulls off tag wrestling that well, and I know that's a terribly sexist thing to say. And
we'll get hammered for that.
TJ, I'm sorry.
The thoughts that was just said on this show are the thoughts of Pat Trammell, not Randy Hills.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You could agree with me, but then you'd be right. So
Patrick Dollins says he thinks Randy Orton will certainly come in. I'm going to say hello to my buddy S.K. Lee. Also, my buddy from a long time. Pat Rose is in the house. No
all
doubt
right.
about
Hey,
that.
Pat.
He's in the house. I appreciate it. Greg Wayne likes the Mysterios angle. I know
do
Michael.
as well. I do as well, Greg.
Michael thinks Dominic is another George Goulas. He has been very vocal in dislike of Dominic. Here's the thing. In ring wise, it's not there yet. It's really not. However, the story and his absolutely he's done on the mic, on the stick, and getting over. I mean, he's been great, Pat. I mean, absolutely great. He hadn't performed like a rookie on the stick, and that's the money, no doubt about it.
Well, Rey Mysterio makes everybody look like George Goulas. I mean, that guy's one of the best technical wrestlers of this century.
Al Tuttle says Edge and dadgummit, I think I missed that. It will be Finn Balor and Edge in a Hell in the Cell. I don't know how I missed that sucker. Anyway, that should be real good. And apparently, Edge has told Finn Balor to come as the Demon, and that will be interested as well. So, are your plans, Pat, to watch WrestleMania or not?
Am I what?
Are you going to watch WrestleMania?
I am. Yes, I am.
Very good. I'm looking at my notes here. We've talked about the new Arkansas State coach. We've asked the questions. We have talked the question from Lee Modest, the question from Willie Show, talked about our new ASU basketball coach as well. My buddy and producer Adam Dunn is monitoring the situation in Huntsville, Alabama. As Patrick says, the wild card is going to be Brock Lesnar and Omos. And Brooks says, I just feel like CM Punk will be the surprise of WrestleMania. And I don't know about that for one reason. Unless something happened I don't know about, he's still under AEW contract. So that's not going to happen if that's the case for sure. Patrick, I think Omos and Lesnar will be good. Brock's always great in that type of situation. However, you can just do so much, and Omos is certainly green as well. To give Michael St. John, who is obviously off the air before we bring him in, I'm going to give him an update as to what we have done here on Talking Memphis Wrestling. Michael's been broadcasting at the Fun Radio Group and been on the air live. And Michael, Adam was able to put your breaking news on our air. So we were covering that situation pretty much. I'll tell you where we left it, and you can give us a update. They did a breaking news, I guess, with the television station, and they said the situation that two of the two of the officers were in critical condition, where you said sources had said there had been a fatality. So, if you can, Michael, here on Talking Memphis Wrestling, certainly we went 40 minutes before any wrestling talk at all. A lot to break down, a lot to talk about. What's going on in Huntsville right now?
Well, it's a very sad affair. It was a very fluid affair. It started about 4:45 this afternoon. I got a call from my daughter-in-law that Cody had been called in. And of course, he's our son. He's on the Huntsville Police Department. He's he's one of the officers there. And that there had been a shooting on the west side of Huntsville out by the Space and Rocket Center and I-565 in Sparkman, in the Sparkman Homes apartments. And that it is the police were responding to a shots fired barricade situation that a suspect had shot a woman inside the apartment. And when police arrived, they broke into the apartment and were ambushed. And two police officers were shot. They returned fire. They hit the suspect, according to the reports that I have. And let me just tell you that I cannot give my sources, but my reports, my sources have always been very good when it comes to this kind of thing. I'm not bragging, but you sort of know who and where to talk to, what and to whom. But anyway, I'm sticking with our report. I think it will come out in the next report and briefing by the Huntsville Police Department from the hospital that one officer has died of his injuries. Second officer was in surgery at last report and in critical condition. The suspect was shot and was taken to Huntsville Hospital. At last report, he was in ER. His condition is unknown. The woman that he shot to start this whole thing will be released probably from the hospital tonight with a gunshot wound, but not in any kind of life-threatening or serious condition. You know, on top of what happened in Nashville yesterday, which boys, guys and listeners and folks, I thank you very much for everybody acknowledging my arrival here tonight. But Randy and Pat, and I've never cried so hard about something that didn't involve me as I did yesterday, because as I looked at those small children coming out of that Covenant Presbyterian school, which I'm very familiar with, one of the more prestigious educational facilities in the city of Nashville, without a doubt. But seeing those little kids, especially those preschoolers, coming out hand to hand and being led by their teacher, it hit home, because you guys have seen what I love and cherish in my life has come on this very show many times. And I don't know, as a parent or a grandparent, what my thoughts would be. And I pray hard for those people that were affected, not only the ones that lost their children, but the ones that now are faced with the fact of, how do you explain to a 5, a 6, a 7-year-old what happened?
You know, it's just horrific. It's just sad. It's terrible. And I want to make a statement. Michael just talked about his son is a police officer in Huntsville. And here's the deal, folks. I am speaking. A while ago, I tried to throw Pat underneath and said it's Pat's views. Well, I'm telling you right now, people, the view you're fixing to hear right now is me. Certainly, there are times that I don't want to get too controversial. I certainly don't want to get political. To speak up. I think you have to tell what's on your mind. I think you have to do things like you have to vote. You have to speak up. You have to do it in an orderly, smart, and safe deal. But this country, absolutely, over the last, and Michael will help me on this, I would say maybe 10 years, and it gets worse every day. Our police officers, our police officers You hear the comments. I hear it in Jonesboro and in Memphis, and it's all bad. I'm not saying there's not bad police officers. Just like I'm saying there's bad baseball players as human beings, politicians as human beings. It's part of life. But I want to tell you something very important about Nashville. Go ahead and put that graphic up of Nashville again. I love the city. I love the city of Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA. I love it. And I think we also probably have a graphic of that church we were talking about. And I don't know if Michael's around or Adam is around or not. I certainly, because it was graphic and wouldn't show the video even I had it ready. I saw the video, Michael and Pat, today. The officer worn cameras, and I don't know if you two guys have watched that. So the situation, unlike Texas last year, where there was a pause in the reaction of the people, those Nashville officers showed no fear, no fear, no fear. These are people, Michael and Pat, with family, just like Joshua. Just just think of Cody is going out in his mind, at that point when he knows there's 3 kids shot and there's 200 kids in the thing. Of course, he loves Joshua more than anybody else in the world. Cody does, but what would have Cody done? He would have thought, well, those kids have mothers and dads just like me. Cody would have gone in that door.
Amen.
The bravery of police officers in a time in this country where there's so much lack of respect to the officers. When who's the people out there? I hope there's somebody out there watching, some idiot out there watching that's 100% anti-cop. But when your life's at stake, or your mom's life's at stake, or your sister, or your kids, or your wife, or whoever, who are you gonna call? Who are you gonna call, Pat? But anyway, that video I watched this morning, and we'll go with Pat first. Just real quick, Pat, did you watch that video of the officer worn cameras from when they took the shooter out in Nashville?
Yeah, I did. I did. I'm not. I'll be honest with you. I, I struggled whether to watch it or not, but I went ahead and watched it.
Michael, your comments.
I had a feed of it last night, actually, before it was released. I saw it. I want to say something, and just for a second, hear me out. I have a son that's a police officer. I never thought I'd have a son that's a police officer. When I grew up, Randy, when you grew up, Pat, when you grew up, who did you respect in life? You respected your parents. You respected you respected your grandparents, and you respected, Randy Hales just said it, you respected the law officers.
That's
You
correct.
respected them. You respected them because they were in a position that we understood as a generation that these people put their lives on the line for us every day. Every day. And when they answer a call, and the one thing I've learned in the 4 years that that Cody has been on force, when they go somewhere, they don't know what they're getting into. When they stop a car on the side of the road and you see the police officer sort of standing back, sort of behind the driver's side door and leaning in to talk, they don't know what they're going to see. They don't know what they're going to hear. They don't know what the reaction of the person is going to be. I am very, very upset at the country, and more so at our politicians, Democrat and Republican. Take the labels off, by gosh. I'm very supportive of our government, but I think right now we have so many people that have personal vested interest in other things that they get to the lobbyists who give the money to the politicians, and their government right now is being corroded by independent promotion people. It's not allowed in radio. If you get paid to play a record, they'll put you in jail. But if you get paid to vote for a bill that's against what you believe and you're a congressman, you just get more money. So that's the head root of the problem. That's the absolute top end of the problem. But there's a bottom end of the problem. And the bottom end of the problem, as we as a nation, we as people have lost control of our situation in life. We haven't lost respect, but those people that are coming up in life that don't have a mama and a daddy in the same house, being raised by somebody outside, an outsider, perhaps does not have a faith base in their life or a purpose to believe in a deity. And I don't care if you're Muslim, I don't care if you're Confucianism, I don't care if you're Bali, I don't care if you're Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, it doesn't matter. You believe in something, you have a faith, you believe in a supreme being. That's been eroded away. Family's been eroded away. Faith has been eroded away. And our government is corrupt. We're on a road for disaster. This country, my father, God rest his soul, died on April 5th of 2005. He told me a week before he died that social media, because all he knew was MySpace at that time, would kill America. My father worked, as you guys know, and heard me say this before, for Newhouse Publishing for 43 years. Cy Newhouse, the president, God rest his soul, never let a story hit any of his newspapers, whether it was the Portland Oregonian, the Huntsville Times, the Birmingham News, the Memphis Press, the Memphis Press Seminar. It didn't hit the pages of those papers. They had to have sources, not a sources. They had to verify it, and it had to be cleared by somebody in control of those newspapers before a story hit that newspaper. Today, I can write something about Randy Hale, or I can write something about Pat Trammell, make up the weirdest story in the world, a frozen goat in the back of a Volkswagen, and Pat Trammell was eating the head. If it's on social media, how many people are going to believe that? So I'm upset. I'm upset about our society. And I pray for our society. I really do. But I do want to say something about Nashville yesterday, and then I'll shut up. I am so proud of Nashville government. From the top to the very person that was sweeping the streets at the end of it. They went on TV. They were transparent. They gave you the information. They didn't take any BS. The Nashville police chief, I want to shake his hand because the man showed his emotion. Whoever the head of the Nashville FBI is, that man went on camera and said, hey, I'm going to be criticized for this, but I'm going to say this right now. We as a nation, we as a community are praying for the people that are affected. We're going to do our job. We're going to get to the bottom of this, but we're praying for the parents of the kids and the people that were killed in this incident. But we're also praying for the parents and the families of the kids that survived. I salute that man. 14 minutes from the time the call came in to Nashville Dispatch until that situation was over. Textbook. I have a close friend that's a retired Alabama state trooper. He's retired, but he gets called in on cases to do investigations and so forth and so on. I spoke with him yesterday, and he said, Michael, that's what we teach. That's what we teach these officers in the police academies. And it was done in Nashville, Tennessee, to the letter, 100%, with class, with dignity, and with truth. And I'm going to say just what you just said, Randy Hales. I love Nashville, Tennessee.
It's a great city, no doubt about it. We've been heavy tonight, and I think that's great. And Michael was not here when I said with Pat and with Adam producing this show. Certainly, this is designed as a Talking Memphis Wrestling show, our love for Memphis wrestling. But the show's evolved into a lot of things. We talk real life. We talk social issues. We will deal with death. We deal with a lot of stuff. And I think it's our responsibility, my responsibility, to do that as the person that puts the show together. And I think it's just great stuff that we do, and we can talk real life as well. Michael, I have a follow-up question for you. Then I'm going to go to a little lighter question real quick as we'll talk about Memphis wrestling. And I have a question I think it's like, first of all, tell me, Michael, obviously when you were breaking in with those reports, were you at the radio station or were you at your home office?
When
I studio at home.
When I got the information that Cody was en route, he had already gotten off. He was on first shift. He'd gotten off and got called back in. I went to the station because I knew it was going to get heavy and it was going to be serious. And so I immediately went to the station. I could have done it right here on this little unit that I'm reaching for over here in the corner of this little, I don't think you can see it online, but on the air, but it's a unit that will connect with any of our stations at any moment. But I felt because it was going to be such a deep situation, I needed to be at the station. Secondly, as you guys know, and I know you guys have either met or have talked to Adam Ward, our operations manager. He's on vacation this week. God bless him. He's at the Grand Canyon. He called me on the way to the studio. My phone rings. It's Adam. He said, okay, what can I do? I'm at the rim of the Grand Canyon. How do you want me to handle this? I said, I want you to vacation. I'll take care of this. So it was something. I will say also just real quickly, ARAB police chief, who is on the air with us on WRAB 107 FM every morning with the police report, called and asked me about Cody. Was he okay? Is there a preacher Warren, who is a very, very classy member of the police force here in the city, has checked in. He called me right after that. My friend over in Albertville, the retired state trooper, called and said, is Cody involved? Is he on duty? I said, no, he's off duty, but he's there. And that was just an outpouring of support. And I want to thank the people that have been saying I'm reading these. I can't respond to you directly, unfortunately, on this platform, but thank you for what you've said. It's very kind and it's very heartwarming to me. But I want to say, if we all I would love to see our country and all of us get together, say a prayer together, and reunify our country as a family. There's a great comment that was made when you were a kid at school and asked what you wanted to be when you grow up. How many kids said a police officer? How many say it today? It's something to think about.
And hopefully there'll be changes there. Now, Michael, are you monitoring news reports?
Right.
So you can do an update for us if there's news on the officers, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am going to have to take leave here for a few minutes and go upstairs. My wife has just gotten here, and of course, she's concerned because Cody was called in, and so I will take care of a little business, but I will return. But yes, I will give you up to date.
Let me ask you real quick before we break away. Somebody at Willie Show asked this question, and Adam, let's back it up. You're a few years older than me. This is all out of my wheelbox here. Did you ever see Spaceman Frank Hickey?
No, I can't say I have. No, I can't. I know that's a Michigan Wolverine helmet on from the back in the day. I'm not quite that old, but that's pretty cool.
Born, I think in 1915, died in 93. But Frank Morrell used to tell those stories all the time. I'm sorry, Willie. Michael didn't know any more than I did about Frank Hickey. So Michael St. John is going to say goodbye for right now, and he'll be back, and it'll be a little reset that we'll do, Adam, with the social open in a minute, and final words before Adam returns.
Just real quick, I'm going to leave the camera on if you don't mind, and you guys can take it off screen, of course, but then you'll know when I return.
Okay. All right, Michael.
God bless. Thank you very much.
Glad you enjoyed, and prayers answered, Pat, for Cody.
Absolutely. Really, really thankful for that. And obviously the Huntsville police officers did an outstanding job too.
I want to say hello to Tanner. Appreciate you being on here. Ron agrees 100% with everybody here. I think this is a very strong and powerful show talking Memphis wrestling at 9:05 at 8:05 Central Standard Time, talking Memphis wrestling. We'll be back with it. Pat Trammell, Randy Hills, and we'll have Michael St. John coming up a little bit later on Talking Memphis Wrestling.
Living the Dream, Memphis Wrestling, The Randy Hill Story, is available now at randyhillsmemphiswrestling.com. Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill and special guests.
Randy Hills with you, Pat Trammell, talking Memphis Wrestling. Pat, you're saying UConn, right?
I'm saying UConn over Miami, yes.
All right, very interesting. Where will you watch the game, and will you be conflicted between WrestleMania and the Saturday night version of the Final Four?
Well, I can flip back and forth, but my team of the Final Four is Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I guess my emotional team would be Miami. I would have to go with Miami. Would love for them to win as well. Want to talk a little wrestling? Little Memphis wrestling?
That's why we're here.
I don't know. This is a hard subject, and I will run through it. And some of us, obviously, I talked about it last week, and I kind of changed my list a little bit, added more to it, the decline of Memphis wrestling. Then we'll talk about the end of the USWA, and I have a lot of information here, but here's a list of different things that, Pat, I think caused the decline of Memphis wrestling, no particular order, and certainly I listed some last week. The 1985 situation with Jimmy Hart as the top heel manager, great at what he did, left for the WWF. We were never the same. Cable TV came around, starting with TBS, then with the USA Network. That led to the decline and death of other territories. Vince gets big. He rates talent. He gets talent. Hate to say steals talent, because that's not what he did, because nobody had wrestlers under contract back in those days. Certainly, a big deal was Vince rating talent, even though legally it wasn't, led to the lack of quality talent in the territories. Even Memphis, about 89, and we had some sparks in later years, but treading water. World-class wrestling. I think this is critical to the sinking and decline of Memphis wrestling. When I felt that world-class wrestling when Jerry Jarrett bought into that, became a priority to Jerry Jarrett. And I understood it because there was TV revenue there, but Memphis was kind of like this the step kid, and I know that's not a good analogy at all, but it was just a situation where world class became Jarrett's priority, and then finally he lost that, and then back to say Memphis. Also in 1993.
To be clear, Randy.
Okay.
To be clear, when you say Lance leaves for WCW, that's not world class wrestling. That's That's TBS.
Very
And
good point. Very good
and,
point. Lance
and
Russell left in March of 1989, and I just kind of walked over that, and this was just as I think you could say this will get if Adam wants to. Certainly, he doesn't have a camera, but he has audio. Adam, what's the biggest deal? Lance Russell leaving March of '89 or Jimmy Hart leaving in 1985? Adam, what do you think was the biggest blow?
That's actually that's a tough one, honestly, because losing Lance was a big deal, absolutely. But losing Jimmy Hart may have been a bigger deal overall, and with in more ways. But yeah, that is a tough one.
I think I would have to go Lance Worst and then Hart second. I don't know if I could rank these because the WWE going national and WrestleMania and all that. I think it's everything together. Certainly, your thoughts on the list we've talked about so far, Pat Trammell.
well, it's hard to say one thing because once somebody leaves, the complexion of everything changes. But losing Lance, that that's the voice of several generations in wrestling right there. And we talk about cable TV, but the way that wrestling got monetized over time changed. It was about putting people in seats. It's not about that so much anymore. It's about creating TV content. And that's something that, you know, wasn't immediate, but that's kind of where it is today. And, the need for all the TV content, it has to do with there being 145 channels on your dial instead of three.
It's just a different world. It really is, Pat. Certainly very interesting. Memphis was hurt more than any town in the territory. The reason for that was why? Why do you think Memphis was hurt more than Louisville, Evansville, Nashville, and the other towns? Because it's
You
a
know,
simple reason.
I don't know. I had a question. That was a question as to
Real
what
simple.
did the other towns do?
Almost, I wouldn't say record business. Louisville and Nashville especially, they were doing real good. It became real frustrating with me. Go Monday night, and we were struggling because we were competing against Raw and Nitro both. Louisville, the other towns stayed real strong, real strong. I mean, unbelievable. So this is why Memphis dropped because the premiere show was Monday night
Okay,
on both promotions,
never thought of that.
WCW and WWE. They were running in that era because they were competing against each other, Pat. There was pay-per-view main events for free. People could stay in the comfort of their home and watch maybe a Steve Austin against Vince McMahon or whatever, The Undertaker against The Rock or Hunter against Cactus Jack or Hogan against Sting. All the NWO against the Four Horsemen. All these marquee matches, competitive matches on TV. So the Monday Night Wars is what killed Memphis Specific, the town. That's
Okay.
what killed it, Pat. No doubt about it.
I have never thought of that. That's that's a very good point.
I would say that
One
I
of
definitely agree
okay,
with that, and I would also say it was interesting too that Memphis tried other nights as well, and I think
did not
kind of
work.
and that did not work at all. And earlier too, I just wanted to say, and then I'll pop off here. The
Oh no,
just
well you're welcome.
the
Here, we
reason
love you.
I picked maybe Jimmy Hart being more of a blow than losing Lance is only simply because we at least had some kind of backfill with Dave. When we lost Jimmy Hart, there was really nobody to backfill Jimmy Hart.
Yeah, yeah, you got a fight there. You got an argument, and certainly Lance is just so valuable and added
Oh,
so much.
absolutely.
And
Yep.
even though Dave is great, did a great job with Corey on Power Pro Wrestling, there is no doubt about it. So Memphis was declining, no doubt about it. Memphis was always the main town in the territory, the top drawing town in the territory. That changed. Memphis died. It declined. Jerry Jarrett had gone to work for Vince, not around. So it was the Randy Hills, Jerry Lawler decision at this point. We had to get out of that rent at the Mid-South Coliseum because the manager of the Mid-South Coliseum, Beth Wade, was a bitch. Hated wrestling. She moved here from Detroit. Hated wrestling. Hated everything we did and made it absolutely impossible for us to make money. So the decision was made by Jerry Lawler, by me, to leave the Mid-South Coliseum and go to a building that used to be a store called the Treasury. It was called the Big One Expo Hall. Now, the last show at the Mid-South Coliseum for the USWA, now Power Pro returned for a few shows after, but this was it. On June the 17th, 1996, it was TV5 night, all tickets $5. Opening match, Miss Texas against Fair and Square. The second match was a USWA tag team tournament match featuring The Rock, Flex Cavana, and Bart Sawyer against Tony Falk and the Punisher. Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert against Men on the Mission. Brickhouse Brown and Reggie B. Fine against the Moondogs. More second round matches here. Reggie B. Fine and Brickhouse Brown against Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert. Then it was Flex Cavana, The Rock, and Bart Sawyer defeating Reggie B. Fine and Brickhouse Brown for the USWA tag titles. Jeff Jarrett in the semifinal match against Brian Christopher. And the main event was Jerry Lawler versus Cyberpunk Fire Whoopie D. That was the card. I thought we'd have 3,000 or 4,000 people there, Pat. Even we went $5 tickets, and that was a tag tournament and just a pretty loaded card, an interesting card. We couldn't give tickets away cheap. We couldn't because we were going against God knows what with the WWE. What did you think about that card?
I thought it was a great card. I mean, you had some real talent in there. I mean, and obviously, doing the tournament there on a Monday night would normally have brought a bunch of people in there. I mean, I think if you run that card in 1986, you fill the place up 3 times over, right?
To be fair, you couldn't depend on tournaments. Tournaments didn't really draw.
Yeah.
But if you had a heavy on its own, because the people didn't know every match you were going to get. But if you had a separate main event like we did, personal issues, draw money with Whoopi and Lawler, Brian and Jeff, we had the right thing, and I thought the tournament would make it. I think the tournament would make it.
So what was
attractive.
The house, Randy? Do you remember? Do you have that?
1,000 people.
Sold?
5,000. It was $5 tickets. $5,000.
Okay. Now, what was the rent on the Coliseum?
I don't remember now. A couple of $1,000 probably.
Okay.
based on a minimum, based on a percentage, but then you had to pay security. I mean, it was a complicated situation. And remember, I haven't dealt with that in a weekly basis since then, June 1996.
Yeah, I
I really
understand.
had.
I understand. It seems I remember hearing from Jerry or you or some. Yeah, I think one of you two that it was a flat and then a percent cut of the house above something, or I mean it was a formulaic, I think.
And it changed over the years. It really did. And
Now tell me about the place you moved to. Where was it?
Adam, help me here. Was that on Watkins or what street was that on? Hell, I'm having memory thought. It was probably
I
about,
was
I guess,
muted.
Adams.
Sorry. It was the One Expo Center. It was exit 5, Hollywood, off of 240.
Yeah, Hollywood. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And by the time
It was a former treasury.
yes,
Adam,
yep,
it was former treasury building converted into a flea market, correct?
correct.
So
Yep.
it was more toward East Memphis?
That was kind of where 240 turned into 40, exit 5, and I believe the
Uh,
exits count down as you go towards Arkansas. So that was kind of closer to that direction.
Closer to Fraser.
Yes.
okay.
You know where
Okay.
Fraser is, Pat?
I do. I do. I do.
All right, talking Memphis wrestling as we continue this timeline, and I want to continue the timeline, and we're going to do a verbal reset of the program because I need something to drink. Take this dip out, Pat. So we're going to reset the program and let you say anything you want to say, and I'll be back in just a minute.
Well, I'm gonna tell everybody a basketball story. I made the comment earlier that Florida Atlantic was my team, and I've got a personal reason for that. Coach Dusty May of Florida Atlantic was an assistant coach for the UAB Blazers in 2004, 2005. His son Jack is my son Wyatt's age, and they were in a small school together in second, third grade, and were buddies and would spend the night with each other. Now, this is how being close to Pat might could ruin your life. Dusty wanted to get out of UAB and out of Mike Davis. Dusty's background is he was a manager for Bobby Knight at the University of Indiana. When Coach Knight was fired, Mike Davis, who played at Alabama, took that job, and he subsequently left and came to UAB and brought Dusty with him as an assistant coach. Dusty wanted to get out and was looking for an opportunity somewhere. My hometown of Talladega, Alabama, is about 15,000 people. It has a fantastic HCBU school there called Talladega College. The basketball coach job at Talladega College came open. And I told Dusty, I said, I know the president of the university. Would you like to talk to him about that job? And he said, I would love to. So I called the president and I said, look, I know this guy. He's coached at Indiana. He's coached at UAB. You know, if you've got an energetic young guy. So he interviewed Dusty and he offered him the job. And he offered him a $30,000 a year salary to coach a college basketball team. And Dusty said, do you think I could give me 40? And I said, Dusty, I don't know. The school's been broke a couple of times. At the end of the day, that's all they could pay him, so he did not take that job. So Dusty ultimately left UAB and went to the University of Florida and was an outstanding assistant coach on a national championship game, and the rest is history. So if Pat had been able to pull a lever for Dusty and got him the Talladega College job, he would not be anywhere where he should be today. That's my story.
Very interesting story, and that's what we wanted to do. No, it was great, and that's what I want the show to be. We'll go back and forth. The theme of the show will always be talking Memphis wrestling, and our supporters have been great. A shout out to Dave, to Tony Bonham earlier. Also, a shout out to Ahmad. Ahmad has certainly done everything to support this show that is very important. I wish, Pat, that we can get this show. I wouldn't ever want to have the show loaded with commercials, but certainly the support from the people watching this show, because we do spend a lot of time, all of us, in prepping. Michael, Chris, Pat, Adam, me, we all do. Again, Ahmad, thank you so much for what you do. Any help from anybody to help us continue, as there's cost in buying new equipment, new microphones, new headsets, the great studio that the master control Adam has, the new cameras and everything that goes with it, and the situation here and the tape collections we have, and there's a way certainly for you to support. There's a crawler at the bottom, and it tells if it's not up there right now, and I don't think it is. As there you see, paypal.me/Randy Hills. Cash App is $Randy Hills 1961. Venmo is at Randy/Hills dash 3. And there's different ways that you can help, and you can take, and we'll have Adam explain it to you, because I don't really understand it. That little gimmick at the top left of the screen and at the bottom right of the screen, you can scan your phone. That's a little more high tech than I know about. And here's producer Adam Dunn to tell you exactly how it works.
Yeah, so that's a QR code, and the one that's on the top left will take people to your website, RandyHillsMemphisWrestling.com, and on there you can donate. And the QR code on the right below Randy's picture will take you straight to be able to donate as well. And then we have, like Randy said, the scroll across the bottom of the screen, and you see the lower third that says PayPal.me/Randy Hales, obviously to PayPal. Cash App is $Randy Hales 1961, and you can Venmo at Randall-Hales-3.
You know, anything, I'm telling you, we got a lot of people watching. If everybody gave $2, $1, it would help, and it would show us that you guys appreciate what we do. So I already forgot what Adam, the QR codes up there, you can scan your phone, and also the information is always continually on the crawl right there. Pat, are you ready? As it is 8:28 Central Standard Time, 8:28 on a Tuesday, talking Memphis wrestling. We're gonna get into the good stuff, the nasty stuff, the controversial stuff, maybe a rant or two. We're gonna deep dive and talk about the end and decline, the decline, then the end. And I'm gonna throw a lot of information at you. So, Adam, anything you can do graphic wise to keep me from looking at my notes, and I'm going to throw a lot of information at you, a lot of information, and that's a perfect picture of Brian Christopher and the USWA logo. So we talked about the last Mid-South Coliseum card, June 17th. Memphis continued to be in disarray. We did 4 or 5 real good houses at the Treasury, at the big one, Expo Center, but we started. Some weeks we changed to a Wednesday night. We did it on a Saturday night. We changed all over. It was just tough. The other towns, Louisville, Nashville, continued to stay up. Memphis took a nosedive. Another thing that didn't help Pat at all. And go to me real quick, and then we'll go back with that thing once I start here. because I've been pretty honest in living the dream, and I was going to grab the book. This book is not just about Memphis wrestling. This book is about my life. And I tried to be totally honest, and Pat read the book, and so he knows honest. I had a bad time in my life because, excuses are excuses, but it's facts as well. I got in a situation booking this sucker for almost 4 straight years, burned out, and lifestyle of a rock and roller, buddy. Living life the wild, wild west. Drinking too much, doing everything you can think of between pills and between pot, between cocaine. It was a bad time in my life, a bad time in my life. And there's a lot of people in wrestling and in the music industry and people in that type of lifestyles that has had demons, whatever the case may be, not necessarily drugs or alcohol, but it could be anything, gambling issues, marital issues, financial issues, all kind of issues. The liquor and the liquor issues and the drug issues led to money issues for me. It was a bad situation. There's so many people in wrestling that their life has been very much saved by treatment, by rehab. Jeff Jarrett is one of them. Had an alcohol issue. On this treatment, he hadn't drank, thank God, prayers answered, in years. And there's so many success stories, but there's so many stories that's not so happy that ends in the worst. So what happened to me in early of September 96, I was doing all the wrong crap. Plus I was business-wise very stressed. Spending more money on bad stuff than I was on paying my bills. Lost my apartment. My car got repossessed. Waller didn't know any of this. Jerry Jarrett wasn't even around. Had no idea what was going on. Waller was naive to drugs and that sort of thing. So when I tell him, the King, I've done this for almost 4 years, I'm burned out. I need a little leave of absence. Will you take over the book for me? And he was going to the WWF, and he was a part-time wrestler there. And at that time, I probably look a little rough. Look at my eyes. Look at my eyes. This is just hard to talk about. But in early September of 1996, I took a leave and was gone for 5 weeks. Didn't know when I would be back. Didn't go to rehab. My ass load up a U-Haul and went to Jonesboro, Arkansas, my hometown, on Friday. On a Friday, by Sunday, I was at Christian Valley Christian Church, where I ended up being very involved in the church again, and the church saved me. My life was at all-time worst when I went away from the church. I understand this is not preaching, people. I'm telling you my situation. And my situation is my life went bad when I went away from the church. There's no doubt about it. My life got better. My life got better when I got back into church, no doubt at all. So I was gone for about 5 weeks, and I decided that I was ready, that I was out of Nashville. I would go back to making all the towns. But the people that I was traveling with, I wouldn't travel with. I would go from Jonesboro, Arkansas by myself, 450 miles to Louisville, Kentucky. I would make every town that way. As I returned as the assistant booker to Lawler. He was just there on Mondays and at TV. I did everything else and was around everywhere else. And Adam is doing a fantastic job on the graphics there, and I appreciate that very much. But this, if I would have had my stuff right, Pat, and not gone away and just do the best I could do to keep it up, Lawler took over in a situation where he was so so heavily involved in the WWF. He'd met a guy, a Hollywood guy by the name of Larry Burton. I would show his picture, and if Adam could find this son of a gun's picture, but I couldn't because I don't know if he even was a legal person. Somebody says his name was Larry Burton. He was called Larry Burton. He was the biggest son of a bitch I have ever seen in my life. Absolutely. I won't repeat to you what Adam just wrote on the screen because I am using profanity, but I don't think I'll use that word right now. But this guy was came into Memphis one day when we had Matt Bourne booked as Doink. And he was buddies, Larry Burton. He said, oh, he produced the Letterman show. He did this, he did that. I don't like that kind of stuff. So this was when I was still there. He was an opinionated guy, thought he knew everything and thought we should be WWF type and make $1 million and all that thing. And I maybe cussed him a time or two or whatever when he gave me just a lot of information. That Burton, he's just a piece of shit. And I think I remember he claimed that he even shot the Andy Kaufman videos in California. He was just a piece of crap. So I went away. I came back with a surprise return as Heel Randy. I ended up as Randy X, and my least favorite thing that I've ever done in the wrestling business was all our idea. I just didn't have a passion for it. I got to be passionate about things I do performance wise, and I wasn't very good at it either. It didn't fit me, wasn't a good fit at all. But I did this angle, and the angle was great. Absolutely unbelievable, real. It got heat on me from Christine Jarrett to Eddie Marlin to Norman Marlin to everybody because I went out there and it was so real. I was real, and it got a lot of heat. When I came, nobody knew I was coming but Lawler. Nobody knew. So what I did was I got to TV 5 minutes before the segment was supposed to come. Not one person but Lawler knew I was there. So I wanted to look disheveled. So I hadn't shaved in a couple of weeks. And when I got to the studio, I kind of rolled around in the mud or the dirt and looked like hell. So I made the return. And so then I go back. I didn't go to the dressing room. I went from the back door to the announce set and we shot the angle and it got over. Went back to the gorilla position. There was Larry Burton. That son of a bitch. Larry Burton. Oh, that's Academy Award winner. I'm going to put you up for the Emmy. That's the greatest thing in the history of the world. That is the greatest thing in the history of the world. Then later, Lawler tells me, I asked him, I said, what's that sucker doing here? So I've hired him to be the general manager. He said he thinks there's big money to be made here. I said, well, he's not going to make it. How will they be big money here legitimately? If I can't do it, you can't do it, and Jerry Jarrett can't do it, that Larry Burton damn sure can't do it. She don't know nothing. Said, give him a chance, Randy. Said, you still book, blah, blah. Said you'll take over the book in a month or two. So I ended up taking back over in November. I returned in early. I returned on October 19th. Met Larry Burton. The Larry Burton era began. Then in November, I started taking over the booking. The timeline continues on the end of the USWA, but where I've set the table so far before I move any further, if Adam wants to have any talk about there, so I kind of got real with the people, got real from one of the worst times of my life. Full screen Pat Trammell as he talks about that situation. Then we'll be back to continue the timeline.
Well, I'll tell you, and I'm not here to. Well, I don't mind recommending it because it's a great story. But Randy talks a lot about this in depth in Living the Dream, and I was fortunate to Randy entrusted me to read the book um, as he was writing it and offer some limited suggestions. And I felt sometimes like it was a little too raw or a little too personal. And I said, Randy, are you sure this is something you want, for posterity? And he said, yes, if I'm going to tell my story, I'm going to tell it exactly as it was. So if anybody hadn't read it, I think I read, Lawrence, I think you're reading it, said you're reading it on ebook right now, and it's available on ebook on Amazon and also a copy. And also Randy's happy to send you an autograph copy if you'll just reach out to him. But it's a, I think Randy's life in some respects is like the wrestling business. You have good nights and you have bad nights, and you have good runs, and then card gets the house gets a little bit tough, and you got to do some different things and adjust and realign. And Randy's been doing that all his life, and it's a fascinating and inspiring, ultimately, story. So I can recommend that highly. And I was very, very proud to be a minor part of getting the opportunity to watch Randy in that process.
So this situation happened in 1996. That's a long time ago. So I will try to give you my thoughts and my memories from back in this day, which was a bad time business wise. I didn't have any faith at all in Larry Burton. Had major incidents with him. Downtown Bruno knocked the crap out of Larry Burton at TV one time. This guy was the biggest ass you have ever seen in your life. So Greg says, tell us how I really feel. And I think anybody that was with him on a regular basis would feel the same thing. He was a con man, an absolute con man. This is what I say in the situation. And I'll tell the story in depth in a minute. I think Larry Burton had this deal and had evil intentions. Jerry Lawler was presented, and he was distracted with the WWF. He had distractions for sure, but Larry Burton was selling this crazy idea for millions of dollars to sell the company. And that's how it was presented. That's how it was presented. When I was still there, Larry Burton didn't ever tell me what to do booking wise in any way whatsoever. But everybody was miserable. The talent was miserable with that guy. Dave Brown was miserable with the guy. But it got worse because in December of 1996, in December of 1996, Jerry Jarrett sold his 50% of the company. Great picture of Dave Brown there. December 1996, Jerry Jarrett sold his 50% of the company to Jerry Lawler. January the 18th, 1997, in a day that set the tone, folks. I had enough because Dave Brown felt and I felt the company was going under, that there was bad stuff going on from Larry Burton, and we did not want to be a part of it. Dave was protecting his job at TV5. I was protecting my future. Dave Brown and I both left January the 18th, 1997. Shortly after that, our head video guy, our production guy, Randy West, one of the most brilliant territory wrestling video guys in history, he left as well. Corey Macklin did his last show on January the 25th, 1997. So all of a sudden, since December, Jerry Jarrett gone, sells out. This led to Lawler owning the company, Burton getting more money. Now, Lawler is the one that paid Jerry Jarrett, but Burton was putting up a investment group led by a guy from Ohio by the name of Mark Selker, and that was the money used to buy Jarrett out. And it's rumored that millions of dollars were spent on the company, and it's a confusing situation that led to lawsuits. So Dave's gone, Corey's gone, Randy's gone, all kind of stuff is gone. Corey's last show was January 25th. The first show after that, my buddy from Jonesboro, Bud Trappell, and John Rainey did the first show in February the 8th. Lance Russell returned, did the show with Lance Russell. February the 15th, Lance does the show with the WWF's Sonny. February the 22nd, it was Lawler and Lance. March the 1st, it was Lance and Dutch. March the 22nd, it was Michael St. John and Lawler and Stacy. Then Michael St. John came back as a regular on April the 19th, joined Lance. Mike Samples became Booker in January 97, did a horrible job. We lost a lot of stuff going on. Finally, more big blows. The last TV5 show that was live, the last live TV show was on August the 30th, 1997. Then on September the 6th at 97, TV5 moved the show that was taped in the studio, but moved it to midnight, sometimes airing on Sunday. The last TV taping in the TV5 studio, I believe I'm right on this, was on September the 13th, 1997. On October the 11th, the show was canceled. Mark Selker, investor from Ohio, had bought majority stake in the company. Selker ended up feeling Burton had conned him. I think a con against a con. There was crazy stuff. A gun was pulled in this studio. It had ended up with multiple lawsuits, and I sent Pat some of that information, and I ended up, along with Jerry Jarrett, had to go to Ohio to testify in a civil suit against Burton and Lawler, except my testimony was certainly totally honest with Lawler, and it was Burton that was asked. Very interesting situation. I wanted Michael to fill us in, and he's here. And I went through this timeline, and not knowing Michael is let me look here. How much of that's this? Because I need you to fill in situations for the time that I left. Again, how much of, real quick, I just need a question of this before I have you talk. How much of that timeline were you here for?
Probably the very last minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. So it's very important, the end of the thing. I'm going to just kind of recap, and I have you to be able to fill in hose. Larry Burton arrived on October the 19th. I returned from a leave of absence, started booking in November. Jerry Jarrett sold his half. Dave Brown, myself, had a very bad feeling that something was shady, with me protecting my future dealings with Channel 5. That would happen in April with Power Pro Wrestling. January the 18th, I left, Dave left, Randy West left, all in one whack. Corey's last show was January the 5th, 1997. The first show without David Corey was in February. My buddy, the Jonesboro radio guy, Bud Chappelle, and his radio partner in Memphis, John Rainey, did that first show. Lance Russell returned and did the show with Lawler on February the 8th. On February the 15th, Lawler did the show with Sonny. On February the 22nd, Lance and Dutch. On March the 1st, it was Lawler doing the show with Dutch. March the 22nd, Michael St. John, Lawler, and Stacy did March the 22nd. On April 19, as the regular, Michael St. John joined Lance Russell, and we'll stop with that. So now you got the timeline, right, Michael?
That's right. Correct. And so far, you're right on the money.
Before we get into that, is there any late breaking news, anything you can add to our Huntsville police shooting story?
Well, I was just on the phone upstairs, and that was part of the reason it took me longer than I wanted to be away. There's an unconfirmed report, and I have not talked to my son about it, and he can't say anything anyway. But there's an unconfirmed report coming out of social media that both officers have died. I hope that's not the case, but we have been discussing that, and I was on the phone. In fact, I was on the phone with Adam from out where he is out west in northern Arizona, and we were trying to just sort of game plan where we need to go from here. But there have been no breaking news stories on any of the 4 major networks that serve Huntsville. Channels 19, 31, 48, and 54 have not broke in. We're approaching 9 o'clock. I'm expecting something to come down at 9 o'clock because Channel 54, the Fox affiliate, goes into local news for an hour there. So I'm expecting something to come down within the next 10 minutes. So I'll keep an eye on that. It's an interesting time of running down that timeline. One of the things that happened right after that, the Memorial Day weekend of 97, and I know you didn't quite get to that, there was a miscommunication with Jerry Lawler and myself and whoever else was involved in the booking and so forth, that the show on the 31st apparently it got back to me, it was going to be preempted. And I told Jerry Lawler, I said, I will not be here Memorial Day weekend. It's my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, and I'm going to be at that. And apparently that all got mixed in the confusion, and they were expecting me to be on the show, and then I didn't show up. So it looked like I was a no-show, but I had a written excuse. But anyway, at that time, and Randy, I think you'll remember this too, there was a lot of chaos, not only with the show, but in the backstage politics and the backstage. It went from being where everybody was everybody's friend and you could talk to anybody, that it went to be where you had to watch what you said to whom, or otherwise it was going to get twisted and stabbed in your back.
Let me pop in. What time period are we talking about? Because remember in January of 97, I was gone. I was booking to the last time. The only issue we had backstage was that no good son of a bitch, Larry Burton, and it's just a horrible situation that was. As far as the talent, up to January, things were good. So
was Bill Behrens involved at the time? At that time,
no,
he was. This was about the
not.
time that Bill Behrens got involved, and Pedicino had some
none of that
big fat African American that was supposed to be buying the company that was worth $3 million.
Yeah,
and it was the angel, quote unquote, the money angel, the mark, and that's when things just really got stupid. And I know Lance, God rest his soul, I know Lance was very, very upset when that all came about. So I guess that was in late 77, or excuse me, late 97 when that all came down.
Yeah.
But it just got downright ugly.
So let's backtrack a little bit, because as we look at the timeline again, as I did leave in in January, and then I want to get again to those uh, days where Lance returned on February uh, the 8th. I want to know in February of '97 where you were, Michael, and that's one key part of the show today because you can fill in the last days that I can't fill in. Your first appearance with Lawler and Stacy, no Lance, was on March the 22nd. You joined Lance almost every week situation for a little bit on April the 19th. So where were you? What were you doing in your life in January of 1997?
Well, our company, Zimmer Broadcasting, had been sold to another company, and my contract was bought out. My 3-year contract was bought out, and actually, I was in the midst of finding a radio station to buy, because at that point in time, I had the wherewithal to put down some money and actually get a piece of radio station, get a property that I could call my own. And it was at that time in my life that I'd made the decision, I'm not going to go to work for anybody else. I'm going to go to work for me. And so starting from the holidays in '96 until we walked in the door at Fun 92.7 on July 31st of '97, there was a period of time where I was traveling to Ratcliffe, Kentucky, to Danville, Kentucky, to Carthage, Tennessee, to Scottsville, Kentucky, to Lexington, Frankfort. We were looking at a lot of different radio properties, and settled in on the one that we ended up with in a 5-day period. We were about to buy Carthage, Tennessee. Everything was being drawn up by the attorneys on both sides when this opportunity here came about. 28 miles from my house. My dad was in bad health. My mother was in the front end of dementia, and it made sense. And it was sort of a blessing from God that I ended up here at that time. But at that time, I actually had time to dedicate a Saturday morning to going to Memphis, either flying in from St. Louis or driving in from St. Louis, or if I was in somewhere else, just spending Friday night in Memphis and then doing the show on Saturday. And several of those shows, I ended up driving back to Nashville and would do the ring announcing, or we would tape a show or a match or something that was going on in-house in Nashville at the Fairgrounds Arena on Saturday night, because we were running Memphis TV Saturday morning that was going to be shown across the territory, what was left of the territory, the following week. But that night was an actual house show in Nashville.
I want to cut in real quick, and Pat, we haven't heard from you since I had Michael come in, and again, Michael's filling in the pieces that I have questions about. But you heard the timeline. How much? You certainly read my book. How much of this did you already know, and do you have any questions to either one of us about this time period?
I've read, heard other interviews about Larry Burton and all that kind of stuff. It's funny, and I think I went back and read the book, and we were talking last week, and I pulled something up, and you know, I know that Jerry Jarrett ended up having to testify, I think, kind of against Lawler, and he was concerned about that, but he said, I'm just going to tell the truth. And the guy asked him, did he think Lawler was a crook? He said, no, but he's the worst businessman that's ever been born. He knows nothing about business. And he was afraid Lawler was going to be upset with him.
Oh, he was.
But, that's, I get that. But it is funny to me. I have understood that Lawler went to Jarrett and bought his percentage at a discount, and they were going to flip it and make a bunch of money. But Lawler knew how little money the place was growing. And when Burton told him that Vince McMahon said it was worth $6 to $8 million, how could Lawler believe that? He knew better than that, surely.
I don't know if he even knew, because remember, I was gone. I don't know if he knew that Burton was saying that. I really don't know. I don't think Burton supplied all the paperwork, not from Lawler, because they had no paperwork. When Jerry Jarrett sold the company, and I think he got like $250,000. I think I'm right on that fact, because
that's what I heard.
he knew it was the beginning of the end. So again, I want to tie this into Michael right now, where Michael returned on March the 22nd. I'm gone. Jerry Jarrett's gone. Eddie Marlin's gone. Randy West is gone. Dave Brown's gone. Lawler's still there. I want to know, when you came back, who was booking, who is the one that called you to come in, who did you answer to, and how much did you answer to Larry Burton, if any?
None to Larry Burton, and the answer to the rest of the questions was Jerry Lawler. And I assumed that Jerry was the booker, because he would give us the instructions. He would give Lance and I the instructions the morning of the show. And I just assumed that he was calling all the shots. I didn't have a lot of dealing with Larry Burton, except when Larry would hand out the checks at the end of the show. And the only time that it really, there was one Saturday toward the very end where everybody in the building was looking to get a check, including Lance, and Larry Burton was nowhere to be found. He was there at the start of the show and during the show, and then he took a powder before it's time to pay us. So that was sort of the handwriting on the wall, I think, at that point in time. But Jerry Lawler was he was, if not running the company, excuse me, if not running the company, he was certainly running the wrestling end as it was appearing on TV.
Okay, now this is what I was told from the talent that I still talked about shortly after I left. Maybe it was Booker in name only, but just within a week or two after I left, they named, or Larry Burton named, Mike Samples as the booker. Did you ever see Mike Samples do that sort of stuff? Then after Mike Samples, they named Dutch Mantell the booker. That's the period as we get into the end. So basically, you return in March, and the last TV5 live show was on August the 30th. In that time, there was some real good stuff, like the Tommy Dreamer stuff, the ECW stuff, but I want to specifically ask you about Larry Burton, not about Larry Burton, Mike Samples being the booker. And Bill Dundee used to tell me all the time that Mike Samples called Bill up on the phone and fired him. Dundee always felt, great job, Adam. Dundee always felt it was a Larry Burton decision as well. So Mike Samples being the booker, Dutch Mantell being the booker. Are you still sticking with, great job, Adam. There's Mike Samples right there. Are you still sticking to the Jerry Lawler was the booker the whole time story?
I don't know if he was the booker, but I know he was giving Lance and I instructions. Now, there were a couple of Saturdays that Jerry was gone. In fact, I think he was in New York or making a shot for Vince. And I remember Dutch a couple of Saturdays getting in the room with Lance and I and going over the format. But I was always under the impression that Jerry Lawler was still in charge.
Okay. And that's who you dealt with.
Right.
Totally.
Right.
So, because
I met Mike Samples and I'd met Larry Booker or Larry Burton, but I wouldn't, they meant nothing to me. And you got to realize that this time I'm a paid announcer coming in from St. Louis or coming in from another market to do the show. And then after the show and after my duties are gone, I really didn't hear from anybody until about midweek. And they'd say, okay, can you be at TV at 9:00 Saturday? We're going to do a pre-shoot on so-and-so. Or, hey, this week the show is, instead of at 11, at 11, it's not going to start until 11:30 because of a network thing. And you got to remember too, at this time, Channel 5 is sort of in a vice grip, because at this time, there's pressure coming on Channel 5 to air more children's programming during children's hours, to which the wrestling show was the last hour of quote unquote children's time on Saturday morning as deemed by the FCC back in the 90s.
Just a very crazy, interesting situation. Did you ever see Mark Selker in your life?
I couldn't pick him out of a police lineup. I don't know who Mark Selker is. I don't
the
remember.
Investment.
Let's put it that way.
He was the guy that raised all the money that ended up. His company, XL Sports, did the lawsuit, and I read the timeline. What were you told? And I'm trying to get this right, people, because I want to make this perfectly clear. Most stuff that I do report on, I was there on. I was not here during the period at the end. So I want to look at these notes and see the last live TV show from TV5 was August the 30th, 1997 for the USWA. Then the very next Saturday, the show was moved to midnight on September. The very last TV taping was, and it was aired at midnight, but it was taped on September the 13th. So my question is, when did Lance leave? And there was one show, Tony Friedman and Bill Behrens or somebody did the show, and I think I have that somewhere, but I don't see that information right now. So let me look at this.
Well, I can tell you on my side of that fence is in the middle of August that year, I gave my notice that I would not be able to do TV during the fall because of Friday night commitments to our brand new radio station and ARAB high school football. And then on Saturday, we were the affiliate of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Back then, we did not have an automation system to insert the commercials, nor did we have a staff person that could do that. So I was responsible for Saturdays, whatever time Alabama played. And that's an 8-hour broadcast from the beginning, as Pat can tell you. They have the longest football broadcast in America. Starts 8 hours, and it's an 8-hour broadcast, including the game, 3-hour pregame, 3-hour postgame, or 2-hour postgame. So I just made it, I said, hey, I love doing this. I would glad to help you out. I can do any voiceover work I can, but for the length of the fall, I will not be able to do Saturday morning live TV. And like I said, that was year one of Fun 92.7. So there was no way that I could dedicate that time. So
Michael
at
did
that time,
September.
you lose me of the 15th of August. I'm sorry.
Oh, Michael did September 6th and the 13th. It was gone. And real quick, Pat Trammell, as you have to get out of here, get up early in the morning. What did you think about the show today? What did you think about this subject, and how tough was it hearing this sort of story of the end of the USWA?
It's just it's a piece of you that goes away. And I do need to get going because I got to get up at 3:30 in the morning to be in Memphis by 8 o'clock. But one thing I'm thankful for is that you and Michael were there and can share these kinds of stories and information with us. And if it, I mean, personally, uh, if and selfishly, if things had continued to go on, I wouldn't get to be doing what we get to do every Tuesday night. And it's sad it's gone, but it's an interesting topic to dwell in. And Randy, I just don't know. I don't know what could. It's like it's like you're fighting the waves crashing on the beach. Eventually, the waves will win.
It was amazing. Get out of here. Get to bed, Pat. Thank you
Good
so
night,
much. Love
everybody.
you.
Love you all.
Love
Prayers
you
for
too, Pat. Safe trip
Yes,
to
sir.
Memphis tomorrow.
Thank you.
prayers for Nashville and prayers for Huntsville, Alabama. Ron liked the show. Al Tuttle loved the show. Greg loved this show. And as I can continue to look at these notes, and I wrote down the Larry Burton era was the most stressful time in the history of Memphis wrestling. Burton was a con, crook, and thief. That's Randy Hills saying that. He disappeared, and rumors are that he's dead. As I'm trying to put a bow on this. In the first lawsuit, Lawler was ruled not guilty, and Larry Burton was ruled guilty and was due a lot of money. He disappeared without paying money. Lawler ended up having to pay a lot of legal fees because Burton left him hanging. It was a sad end. Certainly, Jerry Jarrett being gone was basically not a big deal because Jerry Jarrett went to the WWF in '93, and so from the time he was gone, I booked him to be a part of Angle or two, and so he would come and do that. But as far as anything to do with the booking or the talent or anything, he didn't do it. But him leaving, beginning of the end, Eddie leaving, Lance leaving, I leaving.
It's interesting, if
and
I
it's
can
amazing.
interrupt, Randy, the
Yeah.
talent that did come through at that time. I can remember a very young Edge and Christian being on the program. I want to say that was late 96, early 97. Do you remember when they came in?
No, I
They
don't
were,
remember that. And I was,
it may
I
have been
did,
after you left.
I did 2 TVs in '97, and that's it.
Yeah. But there were some. I know they were bringing in a guy out of Missouri. In fact, he lived not far from where I lived in Chesterfield. Jeff. Oh gosh, I can't think of his last name. Good looking kid, had a dark-headed kid, had a really good body. Jeff Gaylord.
Yeah. He
And
recently passed away about 2 weeks ago.
really, I'll
Yeah.
be darned. I always I had a good rapport with him because I always felt that his heart was in the right place, and he was still green in a lot of areas, but could move. And there were some talent coming in then, and then I think we all realized, Randy, when '97 hit, that with everything that Five was having to do with children's TV and everything that was happening with Jerry, where Jerry Lawler was making more shots for Vince, and I think everybody sort of knew. And one of the weird ones was when they sent the fake Razor Ramon down.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was one of the weirdest things that I've ever been
Yeah.
involved with in any business.
That is bad. You did great stuff on TV with Billy Travis and so much. So we're running overtime. We did breaking news today, and I'll tell you, we'll put a final goodbye to this subject next week. But in our timeline, some great stuff that I'm real proud of. Memphis '94 with the return of Lance Russell and Monday Night Memories. '95 Smoky Mountain Wrestling USWA, and '96 I had my goopy ass going crazy spell, and then the bottom was filled up. The fake diesel was Kane for sure, and Edge and Christian. I'm not sure if you're right about that.
I know Edge was part of it. I remember talking with him at great length, and I was very impressed with him. I knew he had that. He was one of those guys you talked to that you knew was going to star. Let me tell you a quick story on Kane. I love this story. I had a 1996 Mitsubishi baby blue, not baby blue, but royal blue interior leather 3000 GT. It had had two very comfortable front seats, low to the ground like a vet, and I had a back seat about the size of between me and my studio monitor that I'm looking at, just maybe 2.5 feet in width. Kane missed his ride one Saturday, headed back to Nashville. He was on the card in Nashville that night. And I forget who came up to me, but said, hey, I think it may have been Jerry Lawler, came up to me and he said, hey, if you got room, can you take Kane up to exit 26 or whatever it was in Memphis and meet so-and-so? He'll ride to Nashville with them, but can you take him in your car? And I had the lady that I was involved with at the time with me. And so I said, sure. So bless his heart. And you know how big he is. And he laughed about this story when it was recalled to him in Knoxville a couple of years ago. But she drove, and I got in that little back seat area, being the thinnest guy in the bunch. I got in that little back seat area, and he brought the seat all the way back that it could, and he was bent over like this and riding in a 3000 GT all the way to mile marker 26. I felt so sorry for him, and I know he had a crick in his neck and it was stiff by the time he got to Nashville, but you could tell he was the fake diesel back then, but you could tell that he had star power, and and to this day, that's my favorite recollection of Kane. And by the way, in my opinion, he's doing a great job as the mayor of Knoxville County, as the county mayor of Knoxville. He's already been reelected, and he's doing a great job.
Any breaking news as we're toward the end of talking?
Nothing else. I did want to mention, if you would, Randy, I missed sort of the discussion. This is WrestleMania week. Yeah. And I've been sort of keeping up, and the Go Home WrestleMania show Friday night, I understand, is the Battle Royal, the Andre the Giant Battle Royal on Fox.
I didn't know that.
And so, but anyway, have you seen anything what compels you to watch wrestling? I sort of want to throw that out to our listeners and viewers as well.
We began the show, and you weren't here, obviously, for good reason, with the WrestleMania preview. A quick little review is that we want to talk about the Hall of Fame on Friday, Celebrity Hall of Fame, Andy Kaufman, and it has been announced that he will be inducted by Jerry Lawler. So that's great news. If that's true, that Lawler can be there.
Good deal.
Rey Mysterio, the lead guy, inducted by Conan. Also, the Great Muta, inducted by Flair, and Stacy Keibler. And we'll go ahead and put the graphics up right now for WrestleMania. It's a 2-day event, April 1st and April the 2nd. Cena against Austin Theory. I'm interested in that. Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. Interested in that. Bianca Belair and Asuka, not so much. Brock Lesnar and Omos, not so much. Becky Lynch, Lita, and Trish against Bayley, Io Sky, and the Kai. I'm not interested in that. Seth Rollins versus Logan Paul. Very interested in that. Very interested in that. The Usos are certainly against Kevin Owens and Kevin Zayn. Very interested in that. Rey Mysterio against Dominic Mysterio. Been great build up there. I mean, I'm so high on the personality and the story of Dominic. Not there in the ring, but Michael, you said this on your Twitter before. I guarantee you, Dominic Mysterio is no George Goulas in any way. He
certainly started out that way, and I admit he has gotten better. But who is training him? Is his dad doing the training? Because I don't see his dad's influence in his style.
I have no idea. And the main event is Cody Rhodes, and I think I was more interested, of course, because of Austin and Austin's thing with Kevin Owens, the Usos and Owens and Zayn. So yeah, there's the Bloodline story is good. I'm very interested in this WrestleMania. Apparently, you're not as much.
Well, my question
And it'll be
is,
the most profitable WrestleMania ever.
and did they rule? I know there was a thing, a judge was going to rule in Nevada on whether they would be able to accept bets on the outcome of WrestleMania. Do you know if that got
I don't know.
taken care of?
I read that as well, but I don't know the result of that in any way.
Well, I'm wondering if, and I think we're going to know how much Vince McMahon is back in control after this WrestleMania, because it'll be interesting if they put the belt on Cody Rhodes and if they put the belt, the tag team belts on Zayn and Owens. I think the build up for the Roman Reigns, the Roman Reigns match for the championship with Cody Rhodes has probably been one of the best written stories in the WWE in over a decade. I really think that's been really, really good. And I think a lot of that is Paul Heyman. I see Paul Heyman's signature all over this. The Usos and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, I think that waiting to the very last minute to let Kevin come around to be Sammy's partner and all, I think that was really creative writing. I think that was a very creative, the way that was laid out was because right now the interest and excitement of that match is at its high point. Whereas if they'd opened it up a little earlier, it may have the excitement and anticipation may have waned. To me, those are the two best matches of both days. I'm not going to lie. The women's title, I don't get Bianca Belair's. I know she's an athlete, former University of Tennessee star. I think she's talented. I think she looks good in the ring. I don't like the long hair with the shaking and the whip-like thing. I'd rather see Dutch Mantel's bullwhip in her hand than her hair, but that's just me. My question is, how far are they going to go with Charlotte Flair? I think Charlotte Flair is probably the best woman wrestler
Ever.
to come down the pike in a long, long time. But how far are they going to go with her? Because when you look at some of these others, especially these heel girls they got coming up, I'm telling you, who's the girl with Dominic Mysterio? I get them confused.
I don't know.
Dominic
no way.
She is. She's got the look of it. I mean, you just look at her and say, I hate that girl. I mean, that's Rhea Ripley. Thank you. Yes. Rhea Ripley. I mean, she's got the look that if there was ever a heel wrestler on the female side, Rhea Ripley, you could open the dictionary and see her picture. And she can go. So the rest of it, would I pay? And I understand, is it $119 for both nights or something on the pay-per-view?
No, it's just a subscription. It's a subscription to Peacock.
To Peacock, but the subscription every month is $19.95 or something. Anyway,
I don't think I pay that much. I don't pay that much. We'll end the show this way, folks. Breaking news, Adam. There is breaking news. Reported. Back me up any way you can back me up. This is the Sports Business Journal, as I'm just seeing this. The pending sale of the WWE is getting pretty hot and heavy, according to CNBC's David Faber, as those who were even somewhat doubtful, in fact, you'd get to a sale at the end seem less so. Faber says, does that mean something gets done here? Unclear. Faber noted here is probably some private equity interest in acquiring WWF in perhaps partnership with well-known names in the sport along with Liberty Media and the Saudis, also likely to at least be exploring the idea of buying the company. Something has led at least to a number of people close to indicate to me that this is not just jive, but it's going well. A key here, though, remains the McMahon's real willingness to sell. Said WWE has an unbelievable CNBC's Jim Cormer said, in WWE has an unbelievable subscription business, and the company has the best minds I've ever met in subscription working there. I mean, it's a huge winner, and they're a very lucrative. So that's conversation with that, and also the parent company of the UFC is in the rights along with the Saudis, and the rumor is pretty heavy that sooner than later the WWE will be sold, and Vince McMahon still wants to be a part of the management team.
Yeah, that business side of it is a whole different world, and you know, I'm wondering, outside of the Saudis, I think Vince McMahon is a liability to the company after the sale.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a liability. Yeah, absolutely. We've gone over time. No updates on the
last situation. I have is the last I have. And Randy, thank you, and thank you for being so kind and patient with me. This is I was stretched very like a rubber band tonight, and for our listeners and the people watching, thank you so much for your comments. I love you all and appreciate you folks chiming in. I read every one of them, so thank you all very much.
Thank you, Michael. Love you, man.
Love you too, brother. God bless everybody. So long. See you next Tuesday.
All right, we'll be here for Pat Trammell, for our producer, Adam Dunn. This is Randy Hills. Prayers for Nashville. Prayers for Huntsville. Prayers for Vicky Peel. Prayers for all of us. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hills and special guests.